Hello guys and girls, and welcome to the very first episode of SebTalksSports. That intro that you just heard there was created by All-Pro New York Giants running back, now music creator and friend of the show, David Wilson. Go and check him out on his social media platforms at 4StillRunning on Twitter and Instagram, and his music under David E. Wilson across all good music streaming services. He's available for business, so hit him up, and if you're looking for some great beats for your podcast, he's the man for you. Now, before I get into this episode, I just want to say that if you're not already following SebTalkSports across all platforms, then please do. You can find me on Facebook, SebTalkSports, YouTube, SebTalkSports, Twitter, at SebTalksSports, and Instagram, where I'm primarily active, again, at SebTalksSports. Today I've got a very special guest that I felt was the perfect one to kick off my podcast. One of the greatest linebackers in NFL history and two-time Super Bowl champion, Carl Banks. Enjoy! My guest today is one of the greatest NFL linebackers in history. He is a two-time Super Bowl champion, 1987 All-Pro and Pro Bowler, a member of the 1980s All-Decade team, and was a key part of one of the greatest defenses of all time, the Big Blue Wrecking Crew. It's an absolute privilege to welcome Carl Banks to SebTalkSports. Carl, how are you doing?
I'm doing great, Seb. Thank you for having me.
You're very welcome. It's an absolute honor to have you on today.
This is awesome.
Okay, so let's go right back to the beginning. So what would you say were your earliest memories of playing sport and football in particular? And how did you end up becoming a linebacker as opposed to anything else?
Well, my earliest memory of playing sport was I was 8 years old and I moved into a new neighborhood and I saw these kids playing with this equipment on, and I walked down and asked the coach, how much does it cost to join the team? And the coach said, it doesn't cost you anything. You just need your parents' permission. So and I was really excited about joining the team, and my parents gave me permission. And, you know, the funny thing is, and this has kind of been my North Star throughout my playing career, my father told me, you can play under one condition, that you always wear the right equipment and do not take shortcuts. And so from that moment on, and I remember the first couple of years when I was, 10, 11 years old, every day before I went to practice, my father would inspect my equipment to make sure I had on all the equipment that was issued to me.
Amazing. And how did you end up becoming a linebacker as opposed to anything else?
Well, that's the interesting thing. I just love playing football. I played everything in elementary school. Our coach allowed us to play multiple positions. When I got to high school, my first love is basketball. We were a very good basketball team, and I was a very good basketball player. But I was a tremendous athlete, and so when I played in high school, I played offensive tackle, believe it or not.
Wow.
And I played offensive tackle and defensive tackle. I never played linebacker in high school.
Wow.
I wanted to be a tight end, so I played a little bit of that in high school. But when I was recruited based on a projection of being either a linebacker or a tight end. And the interesting course of events that pretty much made me a linebacker was in college, my freshman year, my first week at Michigan State University, we had drills. So I did drills in both the linebackers and with the tight ends. So when I was doing the tight end drills, they would send me out for a pass. I would catch the pass, and instead of running to the goal line, I would catch the pass and run back to the coach. And the coach says, "You're going to be a linebacker." So they put me on the linebacker group full time, and I didn't look back after that. I learned the position, and I had some great teachers, some great coaches. The highlight of my college career was to be able to learn to play linebacker from the Pittsburgh Steelers Hall of Famer Jack Ham. He really taught me a lot about technique and how to play the linebacker position. So that was the highlight. And, using some of the techniques that he taught me really led to a incredible NFL career.
Absolutely. And obviously, to get to the NFL, you obviously had a great college career at Michigan State, like you said. To such a high standard that you were taken at number 3 overall, which is something very few players can ever say in the history of the NFL. So, how did it feel to get drafted by the Giants at number 3 overall, and what did it mean to you and your family?
Well, the the fact that I was drafted number 3 was a shock to me. The reason is because my college team did not win a lot of football games while I was there. And this was kind of pre-internet or pre-sports blogs. So every year, every summer, I would look at the rankings of the linebackers nationally in college, and I was never in like the top 50 of
Wow.
anything.
Wow.
So I was just kind of like, I thought I was good enough to be a professional linebacker, um, but I didn't know how I would fare. But when I got to Michigan State by my senior year, I was an All-American. I was, Big Ten Defensive Player of the Year. I got a lot of accolades, but I still did not get invited to any of the prestige postseason bowl games, like the Senior Bowl,
Mm.
the Hula Bowl. And so my college coach, and I wasn't invited to the NFL Combine either.
Wow.
Uh, college coach told me, he says, if there's one bowl game that a lot of pro coaches are going to be at, a lot of players don't like to go there because it's played on Christmas Day and it's in Birmingham, Alabama, which is it's very cold there. So he says, but if you go there, I guarantee you, when these coaches see you, then you're going to be invited to every game and you'll be invited to the combine. So I went to that bowl game. I was MVP, and when I got back to campus, the head coach called me into his office, and he had all of these invites, these letters inviting me to the Senior Bowl, to the Blue Gray game, to the Hula Bowl, and to the NFL Combine. So from that point, I was excited. I went to the NFL Combine, and I'm looking at all of these linebackers that I heard so much about and I've seen play on TV. I was like, wow, these guys are good. But I thought I was just as good, and I just
Mm.
went and did my best. Bill Parcells, my coach at the Giants, tells a story of how he went to see me at the Senior Bowl, and he had just drafted Lawrence Taylor 2 years prior to that, 3 years prior to that,
Mhm.
and he was looking at me, and he took one look and he noticed that a lot of other coaches started to gravitate towards the area where he was looking because he was the guy who drafted the great Lawrence Taylor. So they
Yeah.
wanted. So Bill Parcells says he told me, and he tells the story all the time. After he saw me the one time, he would go to the other side of the field so that other teams wouldn't notice that he was looking at me from afar. And all during the pre-draft process, I never got a call from the Giants. I never got a visit. Took a visit from the Giants. I only had two visits: the Jets and the Kansas City Chiefs were the only
Wow.
two teams that brought me in for a visit. So I had no idea where I was going to be drafted. But on draft day, I was the third player picked, and
Mhm.
that was exciting, right?
Yeah.
And so after that, I started to, kind of inquire as to who the Giants linebackers were, and I noticed that they had four All-Pro linebackers,
Mhm.
and I was like, "Oh boy, I'm going in with a group that's already stacked, it's already a great defense, and I'm just going to go and do my best." And a lot of people didn't think the Giants should have drafted a linebacker, and when I got there, my first day, I introduced myself to Lawrence Taylor and Harry Carson, and I was really excited to meet them, but neither one of those guys were super excited to meet me. In fact, Harry Carson looked at me and said, "So what the hell are you going to do to get on the football field?" And so I was like, "Boy, okay, I got my work cut out for me." But you know what? I accepted the challenge, and a great career, uh, two Super Bowls, the
Mhm.
NFL All-Decade Team of the 1980s. So I think I did a pretty good job for my teammates.
I would definitely say so. Like I said at the top, two Super Bowl rings, 1987 All Pro and Pro Bowl, and an inclusion in that All Decade team. And that doesn't come with without a lot of hard work and dedication to your craft. So, was there anyone that installed that in you growing up? And who would you say was your general inspiration?
Wow. Outside of the encouragement of my parents, I would say my high school football coach, Moses Lacey, was the biggest inspiration because he was all about hard work. He was all about good fundamentals and and toughness. And so he worked us very hard. He was my basketball coach. He was my football coach. He coached me in track. I was a shot putter.
Oh wow.
Uh, yeah, and so there were no corners cut. We were champions in high school. So when I got to Michigan State, the toughest thing for me was all the losing. I
Mm,
was never used to losing, but the one thing I did realize from that tutelage of my high school coach is that you never accept losing. So
mm,
I never accepted it. So I never took on a loser's mentality. I always wanted to be the best that I could be and do the best I could to help my team and try to inspire the players around me. So uh, that's that kind of served as, like I said, my north star or my mantra throughout my career. I would never take a shortcut. I would be fundamentally sound, and there would be no one on the football field that would be tougher than I was because I was, mentally tough. I could just do anything if I set my mind to it.
mm. And that toughness was obviously a key part of the Big Blue Wrecking Crew. Like I said, you averaged 45.1 sacks and 19.9 interceptions per season across a 10-year span. And you shut down some of the best offenses that the 80s and 90s had to offer. So, what was it like to be part of that incredible defense under Bill Belichick's tutorage? And what was the camaraderie like behind the scenes?
Well, I'll take the latter first. The camaraderie was just incredible.
Mm,
We had a group of guys who it was if it was one man's fight, it was every man's fight, and we wanted to be as dominant of a football team as we could be defensively. To be a part of that group, and for me, because I was kind of a newcomer early on, I had to find a thing that I can do really well because Lawrence Taylor was just incredible. He played the game at a different speed
mm-hmm,
than everyone else. So what I wanted to do first and foremost is to show that I belong on the field. And two, if I could get his stamp of approval,
mm,
I knew that I was doing something well. So though I was as good an athlete as anyone on the football team, they needed somebody who could be very strong against the run and very strong blitzing and very strong in pass coverage.
mm,
So I just worked until I could be a complete linebacker, and that's what helped us be so good. And because of my diverse skill set and the skill set of every one of our linebackers on that team, Bill Belichick was able to do some incredibly creative things with
mm-hmm,
us. Every guy, and it's so interesting because our mandate as linebackers is that we had to know every position on the defense
mm,
at every single call. So if a call was made, we had to know what the cornerback responsibility
mm-hmm,
was, what the defensive line's responsibility was. We had to know what the safety's responsibility was. We had to know what the other linebackers' responsibilities were. And we used to get tested on this on a weekly basis by Bill Belichick.
wow.
And the reason he did that is because the group we had could do just about anything.
Mm,
And so it made it so much more difficult for offensive coordinators to predict what we were going to do. Everybody knew that Lawrence Taylor was a hell of a pass rusher, but he was great in coverage.
mm-hmm,
He could play man-to-man coverage on anyone. So he could do anything, but he just didn't line up as a linebacker on the edge. He would line up on the inside sometimes. I
mm,
would line up on the outside. We'd switch responsibilities in the middle of a play.
wow.
There were things that we would do during the course of a play, and then we'd come back to the sideline and tell Bill Belichick what we did. We would see something, and like I said, Lawrence Taylor was so great that he could see things that we never saw.
Mm.
And so he would make some adjustments, or he would tell us to do certain things. And Bill Belichick would say, "What happened on that play?" And we'll say, "Well, I did this, he did this, he did this." And Bill would write it up and he'd put it in the playbook for the next week. But because he taught us to be so versatile in our skill set, and mentally we knew everything that could happen within the course of a play, and all of our teammates' responsibilities, we could make those adjustments, and
Mm.
it could really disrupt a team. And the fact that we were so physical made us even more dominant.
Mm, absolutely. So we were saying about the Big Blue Wrecking Crew there, obviously including Hall of Famers Lawrence Taylor and Harry Carson. So you've played with some incredible players throughout your career, to say the least. Who would you say was the best ever opponent you ever played? Best single opponent?
Wow. Single opponent, I would say, are the San Francisco 49ers
Mm-hmm.
or the Washington Redskins.
Mm,
And if you look at that era, it was Giants, it was 49ers, and it was Redskins that won all the Super Bowls
yeah.
during that era, over a decade. So those were our biggest. And the interesting thing was the San Francisco 49ers were not in our division, but we counted them as a division opponent because we knew we would have to go through them
Yeah.
to get to the Super Bowl, or to get advance in the playoffs because they were going to be there. So those were the two uh, biggest uh, rivalries and the best teams that we played against. From an individual standpoint, I think the single best player I've ever played against is Barry Sanders.
Mm, yeah. I can imagine. So, of course, you've played with some great football minds, some of the best ever. 8-time Super Bowl champion and future Hall of Famer, undoubtedly, Bill Belichick, and Hall of Fame head coach, Bill Parcells. So I'm sure you could speak for hours about just how ahead of the game those guys were in terms of X's and O's and offensive scheming and that kind of thing. But what was the single most memorable lesson or piece of information both men gave you over the course of your career?
Well, I would say the single most critical information that we got was going into the Super Bowl in 1990, Super Bowl 25, against the Buffalo Bills.
Mm-hmm.
And we got the shock of our life because on our first meeting in preparation for the Buffalo Bills, Bill Belichick told our defense that we had to allow Thurman Thomas to get 100 yards. Now, for a team that didn't allow 100-yard rushers, it
Mm-hmm.
was a real kick in the head for us. And I just totally lost it in the meeting. But what we found out is that the analytics showed that they were more of a passing team
Mm.
than they were a running team. And their passing game was very hard to match up with. And the only way that we could do that is if we put less big guys on the field and we only had two defensive linemen in the game against them.
Wow.
So the likelihood of Thurman Thomas getting a lot of yards would be great,
Mm.
but it also took away from what they wanted to do. And because Buffalo didn't figure out what our plan was until late in the game, we were able to punish their wide receivers. But that scouting report told you everything that you wanted to know about the brilliance of Bill Belichick and Bill Parcells.
Mm.
And Bill Parcells, told the offense, as he told the entire team, but he told the offense that they were going to have to run the ball to keep Buffalo's offense off the field.
Mm.
So it was just a great game plan. But these guys were so smart about how they approach every opponent. No opponent we ever approached, we did the same game plan. And people talk about the emergence of analytics in today's sport, but analytics has been around for a very long time.
Mm.
It was just called something else. It was called tendencies.
Yeah.
a team has a tendency to do X, Y, and Z on first and second down, or on third down, their tendencies are X, Y, and Z.
Mm.
Now it's the analytics are telling you, and they're trying to break it down. But the principles of what teams tend to do in certain situations um, is it never changed,
Mm.
and that's the beauty of football. And the one thing that and it's not a criticism of today's approach to analytics, but the one thing that it misses is the advent of chaos.
Mm.
Chaos throws the numbers out. And what I mean by chaos is if the analytics say a team will do X, Y, and Z on a certain play, but if their best player is injured, it's not going to be as effective,
Mm.
or it may not be effective at all. So when teams base their sole uh, game plans on analytics, you tend to lose because you don't account for the things that can happen during the course of a game.
Mm.
And you always count, analytics always accounts for constants. Whatever the constant is, that's what it is. But if some variable changes, then you have to be able to make that change on the go. And that was one of the beauties of Bill Parcells and Bill Belichick, and why they demanded that we were versatile. Both sides of the ball, we had players that did different things in case someone got hurt or in case something happened, we could do X, Y, and Z. So that's where analytics is good, but really understanding personnel and being able to make the adjustments during the course of a game is where um, football is really played. Because again, if nothing ever changes, the analytics are perfect,
Mm.
tendency perfect. But if something happens to your team or the other team and you can't make the adjustment based on the strength of the personnel, not what the numbers say, but what this person did well. If this person did well, that's why they ran a particular play anyway, because the guy is good at what he does.
Mm-hmm.
Well, if that guy's out and his backup is not as good, then chances are that play won't be successful. And teams have to be able to make the necessary adjustments to really account for those things.
Mm. Absolutely. And that sort of approach with Bill Parcells and Bill Belichick obviously got you 2 Super Bowl titles. So your first Super Bowl ring on the 25th of January 1987, Super Bowl 21, you had an incredible game, to say the least. 14 tackles, 4 tackles for loss. One of the greatest individual Super Bowl performances of all time. And as a left outside linebacker on that famous 3-4 defense, how special was it to have such an unbelievable performance and get your hands on the Lombardi Trophy for the Giants' first ever victory?
I thought it was awesome. Those memories you never lose because you're a champion, and it's the ultimate game. You work hard, and there's only going to be one winner, and we did it. As far as my performance, I approached that game um, with the mindset of not leaving any stone unturned. I spent hours upon hours just studying uh, the Denver Broncos, and not necessarily looking at plays, but getting a feel for how they wanted to play the game. I knew every play that they would run,
Mm.
but I also knew how their personnel liked to do things. And I knew the rhythm of the offense, and I knew the flow. So when the game started, I probably had played the game 20 times already.
Mm.
And so there was nothing that they could do, in my opinion, that I would not be prepared for. So I was able to play a stress-free game and anxiety-free game, and I just went out and just made plays.
Mm. And of course, Super Bowl 21 wasn't the only time you got yourself a ring, because 4 years later you became world champions again in Super Bowl 25. You then defeated the Buffalo Bills, letting up only 19 points to an offense led by Hall of Fame quarterback Jim Kelly. Now, most players in NFL history don't even get the chance to play in a Super Bowl, let alone play in 2 and win 2, especially 2 in 4 years. So How did it feel to become world champions again? And which Super Bowl victory meant the most to you and why?
Well, it's great to have multiple Super Bowls. The one that always means the most is the first one,
Mm,
obviously. But the interesting thing about it, we thought we had chances to go in 1989. We also thought we had a chance to go in 1985, but the Chicago Bears were just too
yeah.
much for us. So 86, we knew we would go. In 89, we thought we had that was a year where Flipper Anderson eliminated us for the playoffs. But that year we thought we had a chance, so we knew we would not be denied that following season. So it's great, but we've always had a goal of getting and winning a Super Bowl because we thought we had the talent.
Mm. I'm sure. So I'm sure there are some Redskins fans and Browns fans watching this that will want me to ask, because obviously after your 9 seasons on the Giants, you then went to the Redskins in '93 and thereafter in the Browns in '94 and '95. The latter of which reunited you with Bill Belichick, who's the then Browns head coach, and former Giants teammate Pepper Johnson. So, what was your time like on the Redskins and the Browns, and how different was it living in Washington and Cleveland compared to New York?
Well, Washington's a great city. Virginia was a great city. I went to uh, the Washington Redskins, and they were a team in transition. Joe Gibbs had just left. They hired a Richie Pettibone, the first time head coach, who was a defensive coordinator. And if I had to be very candid, it wasn't a very pleasant experience.
Hmm.
Uh, Two things. I don't think I was ever accepted as a Washington Redskin teammate because of the bitter rivalry
Mm,
we had as Giant Redskins. So I don't think I was really accepted as one of the Redskins, and I just never felt welcome there. Um, but when I went to Cleveland, like you said, I was reunited with Bill Belichick and Pepper Johnson. And the beautiful thing about that, it was a very young and talented team. And my role and Pepper Johnson's role was to help those players learn what it took to be winning football players. And we had a historic year defensively. The first year I think we were there, and it was just phenomenal. So I was upset that Bill Belichick didn't get a chance to finish in Cleveland, but it worked out for the best for him because he has a hell of a run going in New England.
yeah, absolutely. Okay,
And
so when promoting this, sorry,
sorry, in the city of Cleveland,
yeah.
there I will say this to this day, there is not a more passionate fan base
Mm,
than the Cleveland Browns. I mean, they feel every win and every loss. Like after a loss, you go through town, they're just as sad as you are as a football player. As you win, they just love you. And so, of all the NFL cities, I will rank Cleveland amongst the best fan bases in all of football.
mm, okay, great. I'm sure Browns fans will love to hear that. So when promoting this interview, I had a number of people telling me how much they enjoy your work as an analyst and announcer. So obviously after your playing career, you then joined the New York Giants radio network as WFAN, where you're the color analyst alongside play-by-play announcer Bob Papper and sideline reporter Howard Cross in 2007. So what made you want to get into sports media now that you've hung up your cleats? And what's the single best way that a former player can help with regards to analytics?
Well, my college degree was in communications.
Mm,
I loved guys like Brian Gumble, Greg Gumble, watching those guys, Herb Cross, um, Pat Summerall, Howard Cosell, and I always wanted to be a part of that. But I think the reason I was able to I started off as a sideline reporter, and then I moved up to the booth, is because of I would say, my education in football under Bill Belichick
mm,
and under Bill Parcells. So I understood the game and I was able to articulate it in a language that fans can understand. And that's my biggest thing. Being a radio analyst, I have to be the eyes for the ears of our fans.
yeah.
And so what I have to do is to be able to give them a clear analysis of what happened, but why it happened also. So I'm not a big rah-rah guy. when I'm on the air. I want to make sure fans are educated as they listen to the game and they know exactly what happened. So if a touchdown occurred, the first thing, if you're listening to a game on the radio, is what happened. Fans like, oh my God, what happened? Well, my job is to let them know that there was a breakdown somewhere, or a player missed a block, or this is why it happened because the Giants blocked it so well, and this player did a particular thing. So that's what being a color analyst for me is all about. It's not about um, painting a pretty picture, but painting a realistic picture for people who count on me to let them know what's going on.
Mm. Okay, so Carl, I'm going to end with some quick fire questions. You ready?
Okay.
Yeah. Okay, dogs or cats?
Pardon me?
Dogs or cats?
Dogs.
Dogs. Twitter or Instagram?
Wow. Twitter.
Twitter. Okay. Favorite music artist of all time?
Woo. John Coltrane.
Okay. Favorite sports film? Sports movie?
Oh, wow. Jim Thorpe's story.
Nice. Okay, so you're a linebacker. So who is the greatest linebacker of all time?
Lawrence Taylor.
Lawrence Taylor. Okay, and what is the New York Giants record going to be for the 2020 NFL season?
Yikes. So I made this prediction before and I was wrong, but I'm going to give the Giants a minimum of 8 victories.
Okay, I'm sure they'll take that. Carl, thank you so much for your time. It's been an honor having your time and being able to interview you. So where can people find you on social media?
Well, on social media, my Twitter and Instagram handles are the same. It's at Carl Banks, GIII.
Fantastic. I'll make sure to leave it below so people can find you.
Yes, and please follow me.
I'm sure they will after this. Carl, thank you so much for your time. I really appreciate it.
Thank you for having me, Seth.
And there you have it. The one and only Carl Banks joins me on Seb Talk Sports. A fantastic player and an even greater guy. What a way to kick off this podcast. I've got a long list of more big names and great guests coming very soon, so stay tuned right here on Seb Talk Sports. And to take it out, here's another great track by All-Pro New York Giants running back, turned music creator, and friend of the show, David Wilson. Catch you soon, guys.